Hello, everybody. My name is Ana Rezende, and in this podcast, I will share my transformational journey to become a health coach. In each episode, I will address a different subject that impacts our health, whether physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. Because I've learned that being healthy means being in balance. If you would like to make amazing discoveries, improve your health, get inspired, and yet find sustainable ways to live and help the planet, tune in. You are in the right place. I'm your host, Ana Rezende, and Good is What Makes You Feel Well is Mama Terra's podcast.
Toma banho de cachoeira, abraça uma pessoa amiga, corre na chuva, escala a montanha, contempla a vista, transcende, levita.
In this episode, I had the honor of talking to a very special guest, ZACK leading coach, author of Notes on Awakening, and a creator at heart. ZACK is a double board certified health and wellness coach and a licensed master social worker specializing in spiritual realization, human flourishing, and self-transformation. But beyond his impressive credentials, ZACK is a beautiful human being with a big, generous heart. He's an incredible coach whose mission is to help others create lives of inner freedom, well-being, and harmony. Serving as the senior coaching manager at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, ZACK was the teacher who first inspired my love for the health coaching profession. He was also my dear personal coach. In our conversation, he shares his own journey to well-being, his approach to emotional integration, and how expressing his creativity has been a deeply cathartic journey for him. I am so grateful to have crossed paths with ZACK and even more grateful to have him as my guest today. So please join me in welcoming the amazing ZACK Bodenweber. Hey, ZACK!
What is going on, Anna?
Welcome to Good is What Makes You Feel Well.
So happy to be here. It's an honor.
Oh my
I
gosh.
love your podcast.
Oh my gosh, the honor is all mine.
Yeah.
For us to start our conversation, I would like to ask you, what in this moment of your life makes you feel well?
Art.
Mm.
Yeah, art. It's interesting because I'm experiencing, I guess, what you would call heartbreak, even though I don't really like that term. I think it's just grief, really.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because I've sort of found that through art, there's a way of expressing this energetic charge that I'm experiencing. And, through my book and the work I do with people, my default these days certainly wasn't in the past. My default is to integrate, right? To sit and be with that and allow it to be seen, felt, and heard and integrated into this field of present moment awareness. And I'm finding that energy, that raw energy of an emotion, it wants somewhere to go. And sometimes it can simply be released. You've experienced this, right? Like sometimes you'll notice, like after integration or meditation or something, there might be an exhale or some shakiness or something like that. That's this energy sort of being released into the cosmos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm finding is that there's actually a really beautiful way of channeling this through creative expression.
Mm.
I think I've always known that. I just haven't been able to put it into language like I am today. I haven't been able to understand it like I am today. So I wrote this poetry. I really like to paint, and I like to do abstract painting because to me, it is just raw motion and emotion, And I was writing poetry, and I was in front of this Jackson Pollock painting at the Museum of Modern Art. And I was writing poetry, and I thought, I'd like to write poetry like he painted. I'd like to write poetry like he painted, very wild and free. And sometimes there's a cigarette butt or a nail in the painting, and this type of thing. I'm like, what would that look like in the written form? And I'm finding that even though you certainly can do that, when you're writing, you are still bound to the constraints of language, right? The
Mhm.
series of symbols that makes up the alphabet and a series of arrangements that makes up words. And from those words, we infer meaning. So I was doing that and I was like, this is, I'm taking an emotion and almost like alchemy, turning, some base metal into gold. I'm taking an emotion and I'm distilling it into its purest form, which is energy. Emotion is energy in motion. And then I'm transmuting that in some way into some other form. And I realized that this is always what's going on when we're creating, when we're truly creating. This is always the process. And then I realized, okay, what I'm experiencing right now, writing is beautiful and will always be sort of I think my default means of expression. I can't say always, but it certainly is right now. But what I realized is this energy wanted something different. So I've been back to painting. I've taken about 8 months or so where I haven't painted a thing. And then recently I've been back to painting. And
Oh.
oh my gosh. What was the original question? Like what helps you feel well? Because it's
Yes, what
that.
makes you feel well? Yeah.
Because it's that. Yeah, it's that. It's that right now. And other sort of other methods that and non-negotiables I have in my life, but certainly that is like so potent in this moment. Yeah.
Releasing that energy
Yeah.
in the creative way of banking.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah. I filmed a little bit of my painting and it was so interesting because I noticed when I was done, there was like this big exhale. And I didn't notice that at the time in the moment, but only watching it back. And I was like, oh wow, that was like the exhale of this wave of emotion being completely released.
hmm. That is so interesting because you said that you were kind of going through a heartbreak.
Yeah.
And I think those are the moments where the most beautiful songs were written, right?
Yeah.
After a heartbreak. And
Yeah.
beautiful poetry and
Hmm.
beautiful lyrics and everything else.
Hmm.
So it might be actually a very common way of releasing that energy.
Yeah, yeah, it certainly is. And I think there's something really beautiful to that of this experience of being a human being, of this creative sort of power that we have. And our ability to do that is really special. I think it is such a gift of being in the human form. Yeah.
It is. I haven't tried painting. This is something I need to try.
I'm thinking about, one of my many ideas that its time, may come or may not. We'll see what sort of universal forces back it. But one of my ideas is to actually do like a workshop or something where I guide people through sort of an abstract artistic process because I think that a lot of people do not engage in art of maybe any form because and I'm not saying this about you, perhaps because it's very common, but I think a lot of people find that self-judgment and criticism accompanies their art. And I think that's conditioned in us early on, right? It's wild to me that we're like graded on art projects. You know what I mean? Or
That is
something like
true.
that.
That is
It's
true.
absolutely wild to me. How could you possibly grade art? And I know a lot of people that study art and intellectualize art would probably say, oh, there's, spatial arrangement and there's all this stuff. And it's like, that is just expression. That is just expression. I mean, in all my work, one of the key things I like to help people realize is inner freedom. And I would love to help people realize inner freedom through an artistic lens. I think
Hmm.
that could be really, really fun. Yeah. I'd
Yeah,
love to see what people create when they are unbounded.
it's interesting. So I did an interview this week, and this is a lovely lady. She's in her 80s and she's super active.
Yeah.
And one of the things she told me that she loves the most now and makes her feel super well now is theater.
Mm.
And they are actually now working on the concept of death
Hmm.
in, in movement. And
Ah.
and that involves language, body language, and
Mhm.
feelings and
Mhm.
expression. And I thought it was so beautiful because they are preparing themselves the late part of life. I don't know.
Sure,
It might be,
sure.
yeah.
I think that's safe to say.
Yeah. Yeah. But she said it's helping her a lot. The
Mm.
whole expression, the whole artistic process of
Yeah,
doing this. And I think it's really similar.
I'm sure it is because there's probably for a lot of people a sense of unease that surrounds that, or ease. Yeah, I know the other way too. There's feelings around it though. There's feelings around it. I'm sure when you are that sort of face to face with your mortality. Of course, we all are every day. It's just an illusion otherwise. But there's a point in life from talking with people in that chapter of their life where it's right there. And sometimes there's a lot of resistance to it, and sometimes there's acceptance to it. But there's feelings to it, and feelings, like to your point, want to be creatively expressed. And, that expression in some way. It's interesting because movement is a perfect example of that movement, just movement of the body. And through the lens of like abstract art, like painting, it's kind of the same thing. You just happen to have a paintbrush in your hand, but the real expression is in the movement,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And again, emotion as energy in motion wants to move, and I think we generate a lot of complications for ourselves when we don't allow it to, physically, mentally, emotionally,
Yeah.
spiritually.
That is so true.
Mhm.
So tell me, now you are expressing yourself through painting, and
Mhm.
that's been really good for you. How that feeling well evolved for you?
Mm. Throughout my life.
Yes, throughout
Yeah,
your life.
yeah. Well, that's a great, great question. I really love that question. My entire relationship to my emotional experience has changed. And I think that's a huge part of it. I went through different phases in the past. I would say there's going back to childhood, there was a great deal of suppression that happened with my emotional experience because that was what I felt was necessary to keep myself and the people I loved safe. And repression. And then as I got into teenage years and early adulthood, of course, you start to notice whether you're conscious of it or not, there's this incredible discomfort that's there. And and to answer your question, to be well or to feel well, I would look to change my emotional experience. So either manipulate surroundings, my life, circumstances, so that I don't have to feel uncomfortable, or I would sedate it or numb it through predominantly alcohol, sex, cigarettes, different things like that, just to sort of to either shift my emotional state or numb the intensity of that discomfort. And I did that for a decent amount of time. I would also say I did it through achievement, getting, honors, awards, recognition, degrees, whatever the case may be, to feel better about myself. Because the thing that I believe about wellness is that it's all about our relationship to ourselves and our relationship with life. But I sort of been collapsing those two. I think they're ultimately one thing. And then I had a period where I came out of that and it was very physically based. So all about dialing in, like almost like biohacking type stuff, cold showers at 5 a.m., dialing in like the perfect smoothie, for every day and the perfect routine and the perfect like optimized workout, and all of this stuff. And it was very, very much a physical pursuit to feel well. That then evolved into spiritual. I started to connect with my spirituality. I started to read about spirituality. I started to learn about spirituality. And it was actually through spirituality that I was able to approach my emotions in a much healthier way and approach wellness in a much healthier way, which was through the mental and emotional navigation of life, mental ease and emotional well-being. And the way that that changed predominantly is that I stopped trying to change my emotional experience. I stopped making a problem out of it. Instead, I started to welcome it with open arms. I started to feel it fully because I believe that that's ultimately what any emotion that's surfacing is asking for. It's asking to be seen, felt, and heard. So that would be the biggest, I think if I could bottom line it, that would be the biggest shift is in terms of my relationship to wellness, is recognizing that it's an internal thing. Wellness is within, and it's predominantly about my relationship with myself and my own experience, and starting to approach that from a place of non-resistance, non-judgment, starting to
Mm.
approach that from a place of pure acceptance and unconditional presence. That changed everything. And the best part about that is that through feeling fully, it really accomplishes all the other things that I was looking to do in all these different ways. It accomplishes it better than any of those things. However, unattached to the outcome, I don't do it looking to accomplish anything. And sort of paradoxically, it does.
It
It,
does.
it results in this incredible, extraordinary emotional freedom and inner peace. And that would be it. And it's funny because as a result, I mean, I still eat really healthy. I still move my body, but I still do things like make sure I get sun and, take a lot of walks and like all these things. But like that sort of physical side of things, I've totally just released so many constraints around that. It's kind of easy now. I have like a few simple things that navigate my nutrition and my movement and all of that that I don't even have to think about because I realized that so many of the things that were making me unwell were ways for me to cope with an uncomfortable emotional experience. And when you're no longer trying to change an uncomfortable emotional experience, all the behaviors that were attempts to change it go with it as well. And what's the result? Well-being. Well-being. That's our natural state. That is our natural state. So much of the industry and other people, and even people coming to me to work with me, they're trying to do things to be well instead of eliminating things, getting rid of things, focusing on simplicity, for going within, which is really where it happens sustainably. Otherwise, it's like this constant uphill battle. Which is why some people, could be really healthy on paper, but end up, getting sick and having all these sort of negative experiences because they're trying to find a solution outside of them.
Yeah. Or do you trying to have a physical outcome? They
Hmm.
think that's gonna bring something. Um,
Totally. And then
yeah,
and then this happens with some people I really care about. It's like, and then when you're attached to the outcome, this happens so often. Eat well, exercise for a week, don't notice changes. What the heck? This is not working. Right. It's like, and then you end up stopping, right? When so much of the importance of that is consistency. So the attachment to any outcome sabotages our efforts more often than not in so many ways. And it makes life so transactional. What if you
yeah,
were just moving to celebrate your body and because it felt good, made you feel alive, right? And it connected you with your physicality rather than hitting a certain amount of steps or getting a heart rate into this zone or in order to lose this many pounds in this many weeks. Like let that stuff just be the byproduct of a life well lived.
yeah. It's interesting. We have been talking about not being attached to the outcome, like for a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
And still, I get some reminders every now and then. When we parent, that is what we're trying to do. But there is
Mm.
always that outcome. I still catch myself comparing when I hear or I see somebody with a kid that is going to college, that is accomplishing this and that. So I have to always come back and remind myself that I'm doing this non attached to the
Mm.
outcome
Hmm.
from a place of love and doing my best. but
Mm.
it's always those reminders and in everything.
The
But it's not easy.
reminders.
Yeah,
Yeah, when
it's
you say
yeah.
the reminders in for instance, in the example you described, what was the reminder? The like observing other people or your reactions to that observation? What was the
Yes,
reminder?
my reaction because
Beautiful.
at first is just, oh, well,
Yeah.
but okay. It's okay. It's
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love thinking about your internal reaction as a reminder. What a healthy reframe of like, oh,
Yeah.
this thing I'm noticing within me is simply a reminder of what I know to be true, or to maybe realign with what I know to be true. Very similarly, in the context of the emotional stuff we were talking about, like my belief is everything around us that sort of activates any emotion, because nothing makes us feel a certain way. We already have that charge within us and it just brings it to the surface. And that's an actual gift. When you live this way and understand that have this relationship to your emotional experience, that is a gift because you recognize that it's only through the surfacing of an emotion that it gets to be integrated. So everything that happens that makes us feel angry or sad or fearful or whatever it may be is a messenger, right? And it's ultimately a gift because it's bringing something up within your own inner experience for you to heal. And I would say what you described is a very, very similar thing, that those things are activating something within you because of the way you're able to approach it. You're not getting on that train, you know what I mean, and following it. Instead, you're able to reframe it and recognize, a reminder of what I know to be true, a reminder to step back into how I live, what I value, how I approach parenting in this case, which I
Yeah.
really, really, really honor. I think your children are so incredibly lucky. I know I've gotten some insight into who you are as a mother, and it is so just beautiful the way that you handle that experience and the way that you handle the nurturing of young lives.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a big challenge.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah,
But I think it's the most important job in the whole world. So
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we are creating the thoughtful leaders of the future. So
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I really do because that is how we create generational change, and that's how the world changes.
yeah.
Truly.
Yeah, truly. Yeah.
Look at all the changes just from us, from our parents, and from their parents. When you go back, maybe one, but even two generations, it's like, oh my gosh, night and day. That gives me so much, I guess, hope because it makes me realize, like, oh wow, what will two generations from now be like?
Yeah.
And some people approach that from a place of fear, because they sort of are looking at all the negative things. But I see a lot of evolution in our consciousness and the way we live and the way we have conversations. And I see it every day. And
Yeah.
that makes me incredibly hopeful for what's to come.
Yeah. And me too. And I don't know why, but I always had this motivation to break the patterns since the very beginning, since a very young age. When I
Mhm.
realized that I wanted to have kids,
Mhm.
I had this feeling that I would do it completely different
Mhm.
from the way I was parent. I don't know where this came from, but I had this conscious so very early
Mhm.
that I wanted to just do it from a different place. I don't think people are aware of this enough, but that is why I think those conversations are important
Right.
because it is really a big job to break those patterns. And
Mhm.
yeah,
Yep. And so much of the work you do is spreading that awareness and facilitating awareness. And I think that's what my intention is too. I also often say everything I do is an invitation. That invitation is sort of a byproduct of the awareness that there's another option, there's another way, there's a different way to think about this. There's a different way to approach suffering, there's a different way to live, there's a different way to have a sense of spirituality in your life. You
Yeah.
know, in this case, there's a different way to parent,
Mm-hmm.
the way you were parented. And that awareness creates the opportunity for choice. So
Exactly.
I think one of the most beautiful things in terms of being a change agent that can be done is spreading awareness, because that's also very much so. Then the individual, whether it's a client of yours or a reader or a listener of your podcast, the individual gets to then choose what they do with that awareness. So often in coaching, when there's a new insight or awareness, my next question is, now that you know what you know now, what changes? Now that you're aware of this, what would you like to do differently? Because it's only through the awareness that that choice becomes available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why it's so important. So to talk about this and let the message out and bring the awareness, and that is it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you touched in spirituality and how important that was for you. How did spirituality enter your life?
It entered my life through, I remember this vividly because there was a time where I was having a lot of suicidal thoughts. And I'm so, so grateful for my suffering, because it is the only reason I've been able to do what I've done, and I'm here today doing what I do today. Like, because it was suffering that led me to find an answer to suffering. It was feeling like life was meaningless that led me to find meaning. Like, my own turmoil was the genesis of my spiritual awakening. And I know that's the case for many. So I remember this vividly. I was having a lot of suicidal thoughts, and I was at a friend's house, and his parents were going through some things. And they had, I think maybe their therapist or somebody recommended this book called The Power of Now. And it was on the coffee table. And I was waiting for something, and I just picked it up and started flipping through a few pages. And I was like, wow, I feel so much gratitude. I'm moved to tears right now because things started to make sense. And before then, I was looking for answers, but very much in this intellectual way, studying philosophy, stoicism, and all of those things had a place, by the way. Like, stoicism had a huge role in my life, particularly with my mindset. I was reading different ancient traditions and things like this, but it was very much from this almost academic sort of intellectual place. And reading that book, there's a moment, I believe in the beginning, where Eckhart is essentially talking about him having a similar experience, which, by the way, right away is beautiful, pure possibility. This is why I'm so open about the struggles I've had with suicidality and things like that, because I remember reading that and thinking, wow, if he could have had experienced that, and here he is today with this book called The Power of Now, like, there's clearly a way through. It's an example of that. I've learned to be more vocal and authentic about my own challenges in the past and my hardship, because through my very existence, I know there's the possibility to give people hope, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a part in the beginning where he talks about him having the similar experience, and it was something like, I can't live with myself any longer, was
Mm-hmm.
the thought. And do you see what's going on in that statement?
Mm.
I can't live with myself any longer. So
That was your feeling then too?
that was my feeling, and that was what he was saying he
Uh-huh.
experienced as well. So I was like, okay, I resonate with this. Now, if you just take this a step further and you look at that sentence, you look at that thought, is there one of me or is there two of me? I can't live with myself.
I and myself, yeah.
What? Right? Like, what is that? In that realization, first of all, in the awareness of the thought, there's separation from the thought, which is so important. You are not your thoughts, right? Just so important to recognize you are the awareness behind your thoughts. So you're aware of your thoughts. So by understanding, oh, I'm aware I'm having this thought, there's separation. Right away, there's a bit of freedom there and more choice. And then, okay, I can't live with myself any longer. There's I, and then there's myself. And that's where the split happens, where you recognize, I is the awareness, and the myself is the ego, is the collection of thoughts and memories and mental processes that make up who I am. The ego is essentially our intellectual understanding of who we are, right? I'm Zach. I'm on a podcast right now. I'm an author and a coach. Like these are just thoughts. That's all they are. They're just an intellectual, they're just a mental understanding. They're a mental sort of, and they're made up of memory. In this moment in pure presence, I'm not Zach. I'm not a coach. I'm not any of these things. Those things only exist through memory, through knowing that, oh yeah, I've coached a lot this week, and oh yeah, I wrote a book, and like, they're just mental understandings. Even Zach is just a series of symbols, again, that makes a noise when you say it that I respond to. That's it. That's all that is. I am not Zach. So you recognize there's I and myself, and there's who I truly am in essence is the awareness of myself. That is the birthplace of awakening. That is the birthplace of awakening.
And that
And
was
yeah,
enough
go
for
ahead.
you?
That well, then I got the book and read the whole book, and that took me down. That was a door opening. That was a door opening. It's so funny because I look at moments like that, and that's when it becomes so clear how supported I have been every step of the way. And to connect with that is really beautiful. So I appreciate that opportunity. That led to a whole new way of life, and some old patterns stuck around, and there's sort of toggle back and forth. And even today in my life, there's certain times and situations where I sort of forget. And now that I'm awake in that way, I can never go back to sleep. I can just forget I'm awake. And that's a really beautiful place to be in. And my gosh, experiencing that, it's like, okay, there's almost as now this pathway that I want as many people to be aware of that and to experience that for themselves as possible. The entire world would completely change if everyone had that awareness.
Yeah. We know that because we are in this wellness realm that everybody talks about how spirituality was actually what led them
Yeah.
to the place they are today. But other people don't have that idea. So
Hmm.
that is something that we need to keep talking. I
Yeah.
think that is the link that people don't get. It's
Hmm.
missing for the
Hmm.
wellness
Hmm. Yeah.
because
I
the
agree.
understanding this changes everything
Yeah, it
because it
does.
changes the first thing you said at the beginning, the relationship that we have with
Yes,
ourselves.
completely.
Yeah.
Completely. And in that process, it reconnects you with this state of harmony. So then, that's why I think practices like meditation are so incredibly helpful, because in sort of the fullness of most of our daily lives, meditation time in nature, whatever it may be, art, if we don't consciously make I don't want to say effort, but if we don't consciously create it for ourselves, it can be very easy to just be consumed by stimuli and, distraction and email and media and all this stuff. Whereas when we take the time to go inward, to go within, we can reconnect with that truth. And the more we reconnect with that truth, the more we become grounded there. And that to be grounded there is like, okay, yeah, I'm still in the world, I'm still sort of doing this whole human thing, and I'm aware of this greater truth, and I'm aware of this essence of who I am. And so the volume gets turned down on a lot of things in a really beautiful way. And there's a state of inner peace and stillness that can accompany you even during the busiest times and the most sort of externally tumultuous times. Yeah, so that connects you with harmony. That's why when you come out of nature, meditation, stillness, whatever it may be for you, even in the moment when you come out of it, there's this feeling of just, oh my gosh, this is so good. This is so good. Just bliss. Isn't that incredible? That all that's needed for bliss, almost ecstasy, is just stillness. It's just being with yourself.
Accepting, yeah, the
That is
flaws and all.
absolutely amazing. Yeah, how is that? That right there to me is proof that a harmonious way of life is our natural state because that's what we experience in those moments.
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
Again, when we, like you said, when we develop this relationship to ourselves, wellness and well-being is truly just an outspring of that.
Yeah.
Truly.
So you said throughout your life you moved from the physical and then drinking the
Yeah.
perfect smoothie until you found spirituality. How do you practice, if that's a way that we can say it, or how
Hmm.
you get in touch with your spirituality in your day-to-day life?
Hmm. Yeah, certainly meditation. Certainly meditation. It's my go-to, and it's a daily non-negotiable for me. And in terms of meditation, there's a lot of different types of meditation, I suppose. I think a lot of those different forms are just different inroads for the same thing. My meditation is so simple. And I understand that I've gotten to a place where I can essentially turn my thoughts off on command. I don't do any fancy breath work. I don't do any sort of mantras that I memorize. I don't do anything like that. I sit, I focus on my breathing and the sensation of my breathing. And then I focus my attention on my third eye. I focus my attention on this point between and right above my eyebrows. And in a moment, there's just pure oneness, pure bliss. And I do that. So I take time for that. I also have so that's meditation. I have a series of reminders, I call them, that which is so funny again that you said reminders earlier. I have a series of reminders. I'm actually going to publish them on my Substack because I'm realizing other people might like to borrow some. I think there's 50 of them.
50?
And yeah, they're little short statements that remind me of the truths, that the things I've come to understand, that govern my life, the sort of the distillation of the lessons that I've had and the spiritual truths that I live by and that type of thing. And I recorded them and put them over some type of frequency.
Hmm.
And I forget exactly which one. I recorded them, I put them over that, and I listen to those every day.
Hmm.
I think their whole recording is about 8 minutes, and I usually listen to it on when I walk. Only a portion of the walk, because I really enjoy just listening to the sounds around me when I walk too. So I listen to that every day. That really grounds me in my truth as well. So meditation, I listen to those reminders, do it in the morning, like, grounding in my own energy and my own truths before I sort of enter into any other spheres. And then what else do I do? I mean, I love time in nature. I love, love, love time in nature. Nature, I think, is such a great teacher. I think nature reminds you of just how much of our existence, like things we think about and worry about and engage in, is just totally like human made, just human constructed, just a product of the mind. And when you go in nature, you're sort of reminded of the raw truth of this existence because so many things go away and you notice all these plants and animals living in pure presence without things like mortgages. and without emails and without deadlines and without anything that so much of that stuff that accompanies the human experience, even without memory, in
Yeah.
a lot of ways, without egos, without identities and names and all this stuff. So I love, love, love nature. And I prioritize silence. I really do. That could be in nature, that could be anytime, that could be at my desk. I really prioritize moments of silence and spaciousness.
Do
Yeah,
you have places close to you that you can enjoy nature?
I do.
Ah,
I do.
yeah.
I do. And that's something that I plan on always being the case. Yeah. When I go into like Manhattan for the day or something, by the end of the day, I cannot wait to be out of there. It's
That's,
fun for a little bit in a small dose, but like for me, like it is so, so important to be around the natural world.
yeah. That happens with me. So every time I go visit my family in Brazil
Hmm.
on vacation, when I come back, I need a vacation from the vacation because it is so urban that
Yeah.
it drains my energy. Like,
Hmm.
in a
Hmm.
way, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. What do you think it is about that environment that drains your energy?
I think it's because we stay so disconnected. When I'm there, I can barely see the sky.
Yeah.
And I watch the sunrise and the sunset every day.
Hmm.
I put my feet on the grass, the backyard all the time. So
Yeah.
I need that connection because
Hmm.
I think it gives me energy.
Hmm.
Just,
Hmm. Yeah.
feeling connected.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I'm there, concrete everywhere,
Yeah.
asphalt and
Hmm.
buildings, and I can barely see the blue in the sky.
Hmm.
So I don't
Hmm.
know. I
Yeah.
think it's just a disconnection.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting because it's an elevated way of looking at connection, I would say, because I know there's like another way to look at it is like, oh, what's more connected than a city? Like there's this hub of connection, but it's not connection to the natural world, and it's not connection to the environment that, by the way, human for the vast majority, even that is like an understatement of human history that we've lived in. It's like so just novel and rare that we have these environments now where we are so disconnected. Yeah.
Thinking about the animals living in harmony in nature,
Yeah. Yeah.
why did we forget that one day we were just like them?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's all ego. That's all ego because my belief is the development of the ego was a product of evolution. I know some people may have different beliefs. That's absolutely fine, of course. But I believe that it's like the ego was enhanced our rates of survival because if we could start to think about ourselves and making sure we're okay and our group is okay, and if we could think ahead and plan, oh, what's going to happen that last time that happened, so next time this might happen, and we have to prevent that, like that, all that ability to think abstractly about ourselves and life enhanced our survival. It's probably a big reason we've like I guess in some cases dominated the planet the way we have. And that is the source of separation because that is the moment that we've started to look at ourselves as separate from nature,
Mhm.
which of course we aren't. It's that belief that if I don't have this identity as a separate self, then I am just one with all that exists. And that's what I experience in meditation, and sometimes in nature too. But as soon as I'm connected and identified with this separate self, then it's me and everything else. That's the birth of separation. Collectively, of course, as a human species, that means we've all looked at ourselves as separate from everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about the remember part of your book and then talk about your book.
Okay. Remembering, well, it's through the spiritual practices I mentioned that it looks like in my life, and it ties back to what I said before that once you're awake, you can never go back to sleep. You can just forget you're awake. That's why it's remembering. And I believe that we all can remember, not in an intellectual way, but it's almost a felt memory of our origin, our source, which is universal consciousness. the same consciousness from which everything arises and everything falls into, the same universal consciousness that animates absolutely everything on this planet, from the breeze outside to the blinking of your eye to the breath that I just took. And remembering the truth of who we are, which there's a few ways I like to facilitate this for people, but one of them is simply driving that disconnection from who you think yourself to be. And if you can be aware of your thoughts, if you can be aware of your emotions, that means you're not them because you're aware of them. How can you be aware of what you are in essence? So that, okay, if I'm aware of that, then I am awareness, then I am. And that's the greatest truth. I am. So in my book, in that part, I guess spiritual poetry, you can call it, I have passages that help to facilitate that remembrance so that you can really connect with your essence and then live from that place, which is fundamental to the other parts of the book. So it's really about that. It's really about remembering the essence and the source of who you are.
Yeah, and it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great, great book. Do you want to talk about your next book or
Sure.
in your next step in your work?
I don't know what my next step in my work is. I'm in this interesting place where I have ideas and then I don't like to force any ideas. So I have ideas and I do what I feel called to do. And then I sort of see what's happening both within me and around me. And I see sort of what's being carried and what kind of feels like it has a universal current behind it and what doesn't. And I listen to that. And that's kind of the co-creation that I feel like happens. It's ultimately just creation, but I feel like that's me creating, like me, ZACK, me creating in collaboration with universal consciousness. I'm working on, some things. I'm working on a book of nonfiction. The title is Wellness is Within. And
I
it's
love
a
it.
yeah, and it's a framework. The within, the WITHIN, each letter stands for something. So the it walks you through that framework so that you can really develop and apply these actually all these principles we talked about today into your life. Um, so that's
Oh.
sort of, yeah, that's like my contribution to this wellness space.
Mhm.
Um, that poses again a different option, a different pathway to wellness that I think is going to be really valuable for people who, especially people who have pursued a lot of the other things that they see, the books they read, the things they see on Instagram and all of that, and have not found that they've had a better quality of life as a result. So, all about that relationship with yourself and with life. I'm also working on a, I will call it a coaching manifesto. I
Hmm.
believe so strongly in the coaching profession. And a lot of times when we talk about it, and when, certainly a lot of the work I do from the educational side of providing coaching training, a lot of it is driven by certain competencies and standards and evidence base and things like that. But I'm writing a short book about the true heart of coaching, kind of what's underneath all of that, that guides all of it. And that's really the essence of the power and the beauty and the effectiveness of the coaching profession. And then I'm working on a novel. Those two titles I'll keep to myself only because I'm not quite positive of them yet, but I'm working on a novel. I used to write a lot of fiction, was very much in that early adulthood era where it was just dark and it was nihilistic,
Mm.
and it was just like funny and entertaining and sarcastic, but it wasn't anything that I would wish to, as a creator, convey to somebody
Okay.
interacting with my creations in these days, right? Because I believe everything we create carries a frequency. And it's old anyway, but my reason for saying this is that I took a long break from fiction, even reading it, because to me, that's what fiction was for me. My fiction was like this kind of dark nihilistic, sarcastic, satirical venture. And I came to a point, and I'm actually still in this point, where I'm reconciling what does it mean to teach in a way? What does it mean to share concepts? And what does it mean to let people arrive at their own truth and find their own way? And I realized that storytelling is such a beautiful way of doing that because people can read the same book, the same work of fiction, I'll say, and walk away with it with a totally different interpretations of the characters and the lessons and what that story meant to them. Whereas in the world of nonfiction, I don't want to say all of it, but most of it is just very much like, here's the thing. You know what I mean? Like this is what it is, reporting either facts or principles or lessons or something like that, rather than letting people glean their own.
Yeah.
And I realized that that's something I really want to do. And that's also, that's much more aligned with me. That's why I love coaching so much. I often say writing is where I share my truth. Coaching is where I guide people to their own. That's why I love it so much. It's because it's not about me and what I believe. It's about helping you navigate this and arrive at your own realizations and insights and truths and then live from that place. So, all of that is to say that coming back into fiction at this stage in my life has been incredible.
Hmm.
I notice I still have some of my same voice as a fiction writer that I used to have, and I'm able to express that part of me through some characters, but the entire work carries a different energy. And the work is no longer meaningless. The work is filled with incredible meaning, and that I'm able to express myself through different characters, different
Hmm.
parts of myself. So I'm really excited about that novel. Writing it has been very freeing
Mhm.
creatively. So I'm very excited about that. I don't know in the series of those three works, I like working on three things at the same time.
How dare you?
I do. I know, like, I think part of me wants to be like, oh no, just focus on one thing. But if I really think about it, I like it because if there's one work that on a particular day I'm not in that kind of vibe or frequency, there's another one that I am, and something can come through there. So I'm never blocked on anything because I'm kind of sort of always orbiting these three things. And it's kind of the way I work too. Like sometimes I just have a canvas perpetually set up in the field behind where I live, just so that if I get inspiration, I can go out there and put something on it. Like so I kind of enjoy operating that and creating that way. The reason I bring that up is because since I'm not just focusing on one exclusively, I'm not sure when they're going to be released.
Mhm.
And I self-published Notes on Awakening, but a couple of these I may work with a publisher on for a variety of reasons. So I may explore that too, which would have so I wouldn't be in full control of a release date. But that's all coming. I'm so lit up by it.
Well, that is really exciting.
Yeah,
So, for us to wrap up, would you like to share how people can find you and if they want to work with you and buy your
sure.
book and
Sure. Yeah.
all that?
So, yeah, thank you. So, ZackBodenweber.com is my website. That's a hub for everything you would want to get to. Certainly, you can coach with me. I offer one-on-one coaching. His application is right on my website. For anybody who came through you, Anna, I'm more than happy to offer a complimentary session. So when you fill out that form, you would just type in, what should they type in? What should the code be?
I don't know. The name of the podcast, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Just put the podcast name and then we'll meet. So that is one way. The other way is that I have an online community called the Self Explorers Club. Anna is in it. It's a lot of fun. We meet throughout the month and we just connect, and it's people who are into this process of self-discovery and self-exploration and really making the most of this human experience. And it's just a beautiful, intelligent, thoughtful, soulful group. And I couldn't be more grateful for that. So that's free. That's selfexplorers.club. and you can just do the request to join. I'll approve it, and you're in. And then there's also going to be an online course featured there called Awakening Accelerator. And we also have a whole bunch of recordings of past things we've done that are really fun to explore. And then my book, Notes on Awakening, is available on Amazon. That link is also on my website. And then I actively write on my Substack. I just rebranded my Substack to be the Self-Explorer's Almanac, which I'm very excited about. I'm going to be writing a lot more there and sharing a lot more there. So if anybody wants to do that, we can share the link to the Substack as well. It's also on my website. So again, ZackBodenweber.com will kind of bring you to wherever you wanna go.
And the community is awesome. It's just lovely to be part of your work in many different ways.
Yeah, likewise. I love what you're doing, and you're such a kindred spirit, and I'm so grateful to know you.
Oh, thank you, Zach. You are always in my gratitude journal. Yeah, because
Thank you. That warms my heart. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say that I didn't ask?
No.
No? Do you feel complete?
I feel complete. Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, I mean, hey, if there's more that wants to come through a conversation from us, we could always do a round two.
Oh, yes. I would love that. Zach, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We recorded this episode on August 23rd. Since then, Zach has continued to channel his emotions through his art, which includes writing songs. I liked one demo he released so much that I asked permission to feature it in here. So I am thrilled to share Zack's Bontico with you.
I'm driving down these winding roads, seat back in country mode. Every mile takes me farther from you. Sunsets on this quiet town, miss having you around. Every place I go reminds me of you. I'm in Bontico missing you, dreaming of kissing you. When did our love go so cold? I'm here on the crag again, packing my bag again. When did our love get old? Our spark always burned so bright, our love always felt so right. Now it feels like the end of a song. These lonely nights are rough. When is enough enough? I wonder where it all went wrong. I'm in Bontico missing you, dreaming of kissing you. When did our love go so cold? I'm here on the crag again, packing my bag again. When did our love get old? Memories linger like smoke in the air. I see your face everywhere. You're gone and I'm stuck with the pain. The fire that kept us warm, smoldering in the storm. I'm left here with ashes and rain. I'm in Bontico missing you, dreaming of kissing you. When did our love go so cold? I'm here on the crag again, packing my bag again. When did our love get old? So I'll climb up the crag again. I'm hiking stag again, trail winding like country roads. When did our love go cold? When did our love get old? Bontico, Bontico. When did our love get old? I'm in Bontico. go missing you.
Thank you guys so much for listening. It means a lot to me that you chose to be here. To help Mama Terra's mission of making the world a disease-free place for generations to come, you can follow the show, write a review, or talk to your friends about it. You can also subscribe to my newsletter. Every week, I craft good health and wellness tips, recipes, and book recommendations with love and care, just for you. My intention is to give you information and resources to help you make good choices and feel well. Find the link to subscribe in the show notes. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you again for being here. We have lots of new episodes coming up, so stay tuned. And remember, good is what makes you feel well.
Transcende levita, toma banho de cachoeira, abraça uma pessoa.